Good morning, everyone. This is the Static Site Editor Group Engineering Synchronous Meeting for November 9th, and we'll jump into the agenda as I find the right tab and start with nav and settings updates. So I had a question here actually, first let's highlight something really important. So prior to hitting record, we had a little bit of admin stuff we were talking about, and I forgot to go back up to the highlights from last week. Darva, you dropped this, so do you want to voice over this?
Yes, thank you for giving me the honor. Congratulations, Chad, for your huge accomplishment on having an average duration pipeline 10 minutes and meeting under our 2-minute target. My mistake. So that is really great to hear and to see. Eric, did you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I just for history's sake to just kind of let it settle in. When I joined the company, the handbook group was tasked with improving pipeline durations because it was so long that it was prohibiting collaboration and causing merge conflicts just in the process of waiting for pipelines to finish and stuff like that. There was a mess. It was over 30 minutes most of the time. And we had a goal that seemed ambitious but achievable. And this is a really just a really big moment. We've reached that goal. We've exceeded that goal, and we've done really everything we can within the structure of our current pipeline to make it a better experience for everybody to contribute to the handbook. So it's a very, very big milestone, and given what we know about middleman, it's not likely to get much faster than this. So we can really hang our hat on that and say this is the best pipe. This is the most optimized pipeline we can have, and yeah.
Like I said there, the actual pipeline run is now not even that much percentage-wise that we can do about it. It's just a giant repo, and the best thing we could do is move all of the big files and images out of the repo to somewhere else, and then prune the repo size down. And those are all really disruptive things that we would need a lot of people on board and a lot of changes to processes and stuff like that. So that's really not viable at this point.
Yeah, and it's by no means we're as a company we're not going to stop working on the handbook in general, but in light of the recent consolidation of editor groups, we no longer will have that as a category that we dedicate time to. So this is a great way to kind of wrap up our work on it, and we'll continue to iterate as we can. We'll continue to be able to consult as people as subject matter experts in the handbook and help people as needed, but this is really going to make it so that we have a much more, optimized foundation for people to build on. And then, ultimately we can still investigate the transition to frontman, or we can work on removing those large files, large assets, and then get this thing under 5 minutes someday. But for now, we should definitely celebrate this achievement.
And Darva, like I mentioned in our one-on-one, I'm still anxious to hear who is going to get responsibility for this, because I don't think that answer can be nobody. If it's nobody, it's, I think, de facto me, because I've rewritten it all over the past year.
I will say that in the cases, if anything, if there are any bugs or defects or any challenges there, on the other teams, we basically said, if the team that is now focusing on the new feature, if they don't have the ability or the skills yet, the backup would be the original engineer. But I think as the weeks progress, we'll get more clarity on some of these things. I wouldn't say things are exactly final. It seems like there's been a change almost every week. So I think that maybe in about 3 weeks or so, just a little bit of patience. But if something happens and something breaks or something's needed, you'll probably be called.
And that's fine. And the absence of information is perfect. That's what we know right now. Just wondering.
Cool. So moving on to tactical updates, we only have a couple members of the engineering team here today, but we'll see what we can get here. Vasily, you had been working on, or had been assigned to the settings in NavWork to disable features on the left-hand nav. So I was just curious what you've uncovered there. I see your update that you had a prototype that disables. So I'm just curious if you could give me a sense of like the complexity there and what work is remaining. How hard is it going to be to do the rest of them?
I think that the first step is the hardest one, because the rest of the these blocks, these side menus, should be done kind of similarly to the first like tasks that I'm working on right now. So, but I found some, it's like not the problem, but something that I needs somebody's help. It's permissions, because GitLab has many permissions, and we not only need to disable this tab, we also need to prevent users from accessing the pages that this tab represents. So that's, like in my prototype, it works, but I want to find like a person who knows more about it and ask this person to review this code. So yeah, and after it's done, I think the other other like items in the menu can be removed quite similarly. So we can use this merge request as an example for the future changes.
Sounds great. Thanks. Do you need any help tracking down somebody to help review that, or you kind of know where to head?
I think I'll check like who reviewed the previous MRs like that, that were adding these new items, and I'll pick somebody from there and see if it was a right person or not.
Great. Chad, you've got the next one on analytics.
Sure. This is one of the ones I didn't make as much progress on last week that I would have liked, but that's mainly because I'm trying to make sure I do this the right way. There's emerging standards around how these metrics should be named and in ways that they're captured and show up automatically, maybe in reports along with other sorts of metrics like that. And so a lot of the week was spent like reading docs. I set up one-on-ones with two people that I knew had knowledge with it, and got a lot of good info there and took notes on it. And then I have, but they didn't have the answers to some of the very specific questions I had. So I have a Slack question pending. I think I found maybe the right people to ask now. So the actual implementation of it, I know, Eric, you asked if we could get it in for this release. The actual implementation is going to be really straightforward, but since this data, it like can lag weeks, you have to get the metrics in and then wait for it to show up. I want to make sure I have the right naming and stuff and not have to revisit it or have misnamed metrics get out there. So that's where I'm at.
Totally understand. Yep. Yeah, very understandable. Great. Jacques not on a call, but I saw he left some updates on outstanding MRs for the image upload and previewing in the static site editor. So we can just follow up async on that. I know it's getting close. He's got some, unless Chad, maybe you've got insight into it from following along, but it seems like it was getting there.
I've seen him doing work on them, and yeah, he didn't ask me for a review yet, so I was not looking at it.
No problem. And I guess the other thing is an update from my side on the proposal for the WYSIWYG editor, the rich text editor architecture that we're working on. Enrique continued to refine the technical proposal last week. And I think our goal is to let the dust settle on this editor group realignment and then bring this in the form of a technical review, a peer review of some kind, circulate for feedback among engineers, as well as I'm going to be presenting an opportunity canvas just to summarize the business case and the product justification to the product team, probably in the next, I'd like to schedule that next week maybe. And from there we can move forward with confidence. Obviously, the editor group would be a great one to present this to. I was speaking with Kai about all this, and I think it might be helpful to schedule maybe a deep dive on the architecture and everything related to the Web IDE, so that our group can get up to speed on what goes on under the hood there, as well as have Enrique do a deep dive on his proposal and present that to the current editor group, and have those engineers really understand what he's been thinking about and where he's landed. So I'll try and get those on the calendar. I'll chat with Roman about that and see what we can do in the next couple of weeks to get those scheduled.
On that topic, when I attended the editor group's meeting last week, I brought this up and said that I was real happy with the direction of the architecture and all of the thought that we've put into it. And there were some similar sentiments, like from people like Paul that have reviewed some of the architecture we've done in the past. And, you know, we put a lot of good thought into everything we've done. So I think it will go well. I'm looking forward to us working together on it.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't be more happy with how thorough and I don't know how complementary this is to just everything that we've been tasked with now. Like, I think it fits really well into an editor group's strategy. It fits well into the GitLab ecosystem and the product itself, and obviously will help the static site editor grow as soon as we're done implementing it. So that's the update there. And I don't have like concrete issues yet for implementation, but I'm hopeful that we get these reviews underway, and maybe by sometime within 13.7, we can start actually dedicating some engineering time to building out the foundations. Moving on to handbook and growth marketing. Chad's you've got the only agenda item there.
Yes. So towards the end of last week, Marcel Van Ribenden, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, he pulled me on an MR saying, I tried to get the www repo running under GitPod. Initially, I was like, I haven't even used GitPod yet. I really don't know. I told him to do something, which was actually the wrong advice because it had been so long since I used RVM. But after I looked at it, I was like, this is pretty cool. So I ended up working on Friday and a little bit this weekend getting the www repo working under GitPod, which I think is going to be really cool. And I'm going to also follow up by adding some documentation in the handbook and under the doc folder. It's kind of vague where it actually belongs, so I'm going to put it in one and cross-reference it. But this should be a real easy way for people to work on the about site, both marketing and handbook, without having to set up their machine. It's really cool.
That's great. I had been talking with Marcel about this maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and he was showing me some of the GitPod work, and I was like, I was sharing some challenges we had with a release post manager who had an old version of Ruby installed or something like that, and it caused a bunch of conflicts. And I was like, oh, for that specific use case, it'd be really cool to have GitPod for the www repo. And he went and tried to do this, and then it sounds like you helped bring it over the finish line, which is very exciting.
Yeah, there are a couple of things. Like I was like, well, how am I going to make both? It's actually a mono repo. It's 2 sites. How's that going to work? And they actually had features to do exactly what I wanted. So I'm pretty impressed with it. It's a cool product.
Nice. When this is all buttoned up, just keep me in the loop with this. And when it's buttoned up, we'll make an announcement, or you can make an announcement. It doesn't need to come from me, but we should announce this widely so that people know that the integration is available and how to use it. I think it's great.
Yep, and I think it fits in well with maybe wanting to have less effort expended towards helping people work in the www repo.
Yeah. Cool. Well, excellent. moving on to GitLab Docs. Craig, thanks for sitting with us for 30 minutes while we got to
Yep.
your section. But
Sorry,
Vasily, you want to?
rambling.
No. It's we probably should have started with this so you could drop, but thank you. We can get an update on the offline documentation stuff. Vasily, if you want to run that.
So yeah, last week I had a conversation with Balu, and he suggested, so we provided him a proposal that we created for the offline documentation. So we checked it together, and it seems to be a good way to move forward. However, one of the challenges we have right now is the size of the generated docs, because like on my local machine, when I try to see how much space it consumes, it was like 600 megabytes for text files with images, which is too much, and we want to reduce it to sub 100 megabytes, like fewer is better. And that's what I'm working on right now. I created an issue where I added the steps that we can introduce to reduce the size. And yeah, that's what I was working on. And there are some questions from Craig. Can you verbalize them?
Sure. The first one was one of the items that you mentioned was changing the sidebar. I'm guessing the global nav on the left-hand
Yeah,
side.
right.
Make it so that it's not loading everything and by reducing the size of the page. If that were a change that were to be made, is that literally only on the offline version of this, or would this be something that we would need to roll across all of the code?
Right now we can choose, because we can control what kind of docs we can produce. We can produce, it's the same way as we do right now for docs.gitlab.com, but for Omnibus package, we can use a different settings and produce a different types of docs. So in this case, it will be still global navigation, but it will have some restrictions. So you will access like everything inside of the section you are in, but for accessing other section, you need to click and reload the page.
And I think that that's actually okay. It's already a step up from what they have, which is nothing.
Yes.
And if they have to do a little bit of click and load, I'm okay with that in that environment. If it were to change the actual overall experience, just like you click that and then you're doing another HTTP refresh to get something, I think people would scream. What do you mean it's not actually being responsive? So great. Thank you very much for that. And I'll put that in the issue, with kind of set of conversations or whatever.
Sure.
And then I saw your other item, which is I had asked, do we pick one? Do we pick all? And I see your recommendation to just take them all.
Yes, it's better to take them all, because each step, like, for example, reducing the global navigation size, it like saves like 50%. Then making symlinks for images, it's like around 30 megabytes or so. So each step introduces some savings for the total space. So far I made it as small as 26 megabytes. It should be good enough, like to convince Balu like to include this to Omnibus package.
One other quick question, and I'll put it in the thing and quick. When this actually builds everything and does stuff, is it only building and distributing those items that are actually used within the documentation, or is it actually pulling some things from some images from the repo that may not be used anymore, but are still just actually listed in the repo? Basically, old images that we're not using anymore.
I think it uses only the current images, so it takes the content of the docs folder from the GitLab repository. So everything that's there, and it should be like some actual documentation pages, it should be the same content. Basically, we convert Markdown files to HTML and copy all of the images.
Okay, so we're not actually building a package that has images that we're no longer using, but just happen to be sitting in the repo, but nobody's touching them.
I think that can happen, but probably it's not the case.
Okay.
I don't know, like if we track the not longer used images in the docs folder, like when we update documentation for the GitLab repository, do we also check if there is no images that are still in the repo but has no links to them? If you do that, then we should not have any kind of like extra images.
Okay.
I would guess that unless there's a process or something automated to explicitly find them, the answer is yes, there are some.
Oh, they're definitely in there. I could swear.
Right.
They're definitely-
Okay. So yeah, in this case, it might be also like one of the ways to improve. We can simply remove these images and it will affect the total size as well.
We do chores on a regular basis. I'll see if we can do some things to kind of clean things up. But it's thank you for letting me know about that.
Sure, it will be useful.
Thanks.
Just a random question on that came up, and maybe you've already thought about it, but is there any concerns about the technical debt that's going to be introduced by having the nav behave two different ways for different people, or increased chance of regressions in one versus the other if it's less frequently used, like the omnibus one, the need for automated tests or something?
Yeah, that's a good question, because
Yeah, maybe
it will be like two separate ways how to build it. But I think when it's ready for testing, we can see maybe the second approach that produces a less HTML code can be used for docs as well. I don't know how much user experience it affects, because I tried it like on my local machine. It's kind of if you really used these tabs to open like without reloading the page, you will notice the difference. But I was actually, before I was not aware that you can open them. So I just clicked and reload the page like explicitly. So for me, it was like no significant change. But yeah, we can test it.
Cool. So we're a little over time. I don't have a lot of updates other than I'm working on planning, specifically the settings in nav. I'm trying to consolidate that work and make it more clear what we are actually working on in the near future, what the scope of work for our engagement on the settings in nav work is, and that will likely take the form of an epic similar to our category maturity epic with the static site editor. I'm trying to build some hierarchy there, working on that this week and planning for 13.7 with a consolidated editor group. So more on that in the product and design sync this evening, my time. And obviously any questions you have related to that, you can send them in Slack. I'm always available. We'll have a planning issue shortly and some put some thoughts on what work is carrying over from 13.6, who's going to pick that up as we consolidate editor groups and hand off work and try and tie up some loose ends before focusing on the other work that we have on our plate. So that'll be my focus this week, and probably have more detail on that by midweek, if not Friday.
I have a quick question. What is the day I would have to have the project navigation metrics merged in order for it to be in this release?
So the event would be something that we would need to have in the whole point is to get it in the packaged release. So it would be I believe the 17th is when they cut that build. Might be good to have it merged by the 16th, because I don't know what time of day and what time zone. Oh, I think you're muted, but
Sorry, I'll try to make sure to have it ready, and I should get the answers I need by then.
cool. Appreciate it. All right. Well, I'll stop the recording. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll chat soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.